Good morning. Welcome to the Maryland Public Service Commission's administrative meeting for March 31st, 2021. We'll begin with approval of the minutes from our last meeting on March 24th, 2021. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The meeting minutes are approved. Good morning, Mr. Secretary.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. There are two items on today's consent agenda. Item number one is a request from Appalachian Hydro Associates, Inc. for certification of a renewable energy facility. And item number two is a request from Spark Energy LLC to amend its electricity supplier license.
Thank you. We'll begin with questioning by the commissioners. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to item number one, I just want to say that I'm sure our colleagues in the Commonwealth of Kentucky are appreciative of the largesse of the state of Maryland. With regard to number two, Mr. Jang, could I ask a question of the nature of the 4 complaints listed in the buck sheet against the company in the last year? What were those complaints about?
Good morning, Commissioner, Chairman Michael Jang on behalf of staff. So the 4 complaints in 2020 were, one was for slamming, two of them were for misrepresentation, and the last one was for start-stop service. CAD ruled in favor of the customer for the slamming complaint. For the 2 misrepresentations, one was in favor of the customer and the other was in favor of the company. And then for the last one, the start-stop service, CAD ruled that there was no violation found for that last one.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to support this item, but I did want to call it out as, you know, the potential for an early harbinger of a slamming and an integrity related issue, and put this company on notice. We're watching. We got our eyes on you, and we're going to watch very closely for these types of violations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Your questions raised a few more questions for me. Do we have a representative from Spark Energy LLC with us today?
Yeah, this is Muriel Leclerc.
Hi. Good morning, Ms. McClark. Do you have a video on your computer?
No, I don't. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I have a few questions stemming from Commissioner O'Donnell's questions regarding the complaints. Do you have a compliance officer at Spark Energy?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And where is that compliance officer housed? In Houston?
In Houston, yeah.
How many complaints do you typically handle from customers on the course of a year?
I'm not sure. I would have to get that information for you. I couldn't say offhand.
You just heard that there was 4 complaints filed with the Consumer Affairs Division in 2020. How many complaints have been filed in 2021?
Again, I would have to check with our compliance manager on that.
And do we have your compliance manager on the call today?
No, sir.
Can I ask why NRC filed its application for the amendment under seal?
I'm sorry, you were breaking up. I didn't get your whole question.
Can you tell me why Spark Energy filed its license amendment application as a non-public item?
Oh, did it? It wasn't intended to be on public.
Okay, that may have been an error then in our case because we've been treating it as non-public.
There was no confidentiality request.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that matter. Can you provide us with information, because currently you provide retail electric and gas supply service in the BGE service territory, is that correct?
Yes,
And your application request before us today is not envisioning that your natural gas license be expanded to additional utility service territories, is that correct?
yes, we want to expand into the other territories.
But only for electric, not for gas.
No, let me see here. Let me double check. Just a second, please. That's correct. Right now, just for electric. I believe our gas license is already has already been approved in other territories.
Mr. Jang, can you confirm that? Do you know if Spark Energy has a license to supply natural gas in all service territories in addition to BGE?
I am not sure at this moment, but I can check.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jang.
It would be under not Spark Energy, but Spark Energy Gas LLC, the two different entities.
But the two entities are owned and organized under the same parent?
Yes.
Mr. Jang, if I could have you mute.
Yep.
And in terms of solicitation of customers, is telephone solicitation your primary method?
I believe so.
What are the other methods to solicit?
Presently, we have, of course, our website. And I am not sure about any door-to-door, what our current campaigns are or are not right now in Maryland.
Thank you. I recognize I'm throwing a lot of questions at you. I know you operate in a number of states. Do you know how many states you operate in?
We operate in all the deregulated states.
Do you happen to know the number of states?
If I had to take a guess, and this is a pure guess, probably 19.
Thank you. I just want to drill down a little further in terms of your complaint history with the Consumer Affairs Division. You stated that you don't know if there's any complaints in 2021. Staff revealed 4 complaints in 2020. Do you know how many complaints you received in the prior year, 2019?
No, I don't. Again, I would have to check with our compliance team.
Okay, thank you. With my colleagues' indulgence, I'd like to hold over this item until our next administrative meeting to allow the Smart Energy representative to bring a compliance officer with her to the next meeting. I have some additional questions, but I fear that this representative won't be able to answer further questions based on these initial questions. Do any of my colleagues have objections?
No objection. In fact, I would like to hear some of those answers as well. So I fully support your motion.
As do I, Mr. Chairman, absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Leclerc, if we hold this over for 2 weeks, will you be able to bring your compliance officer with you to the next administrative meeting?
We should be able to plan something in 2 weeks, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Secretary, let's hold this item over until April 14th, 2021.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Leclerc. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks from today.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions from commissioners, I will move that with respect to item number 1, that we approve the application and issue a renewable energy facility ID certification number, direct the applicant to establish a REC account with PJM GATS within 30 days of certification, and direct the applicant to notify the commission within 30 days if the information on which the application is based should change. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. Mr. Secretary, the administrative agenda, please.
Mr. Chairman, item number 3 on today's administrative agenda is an application from Starling Services LLC for designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier. On this item for staff, we have Afton Hauer and Kenneth Albert.
Ms. Hauer.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Afton Hauer on behalf of staff. I regret to inform that I accidentally forgot to include the company on this item. So that's why they're not represented. I'm not sure what to do about that.
Let us hear your summary, and to the extent that the commissioners have questions that you can't answer and can only be answered by Starling Services, we may opt to hold this item over. So let's play it by ear and see if we need to have the party present.
Okay, thank you so much. And again, I'm really sorry. Good morning. On January 4th, 2021, Starlink Services LLC filed an application for designation as an eligible telecommunications carrier in Maryland. Starlink Services does not currently provide regulated telecommunications services in Maryland, nor does the company intend to provide any additional regulated services as part of its ETC application. On December 7, 2020, the Federal Communications Commission announced that Space Exploration Technologies Corp., or SpaceX, was among the winning bidders in the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund Phase 1 auction to provide satellite broadband and voice telephony services using Voice over Internet Protocol in rural areas of Maryland. SpaceX was awarded $885 million to provide broadband, standalone voice services in 35 states, including $4,060,771 in Maryland. SpaceX assigned its winning bids to its wholly owned subsidiary, Starlink Services, on December 22, 2020. As part of the post-auction procedures required by the FCC, Starlink must obtain ETC designation within all areas where it has been named the winning bidder no later than June 7, 2021. Designation as an ETC would permit Starlink Services to receive support from the FCC. Staff recommends that the Commission find that designation of Starlink Services as an ETC is in the public interest and grant the company such designation pursuant to 47 U.S.C. Section 214E for the service territory specified in its application, and with an effective date concurrent with when the Commission considers this matter at an administrative meeting, provided no adverse comments are filed within the 30 days following the effective date, and Starlink Services complies with the Commission requirements described in the May 4th, 2012 notice to ETCs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hauer. That was a comprehensive summary paired with your comprehensive buck sheet. It's always interesting to see what activities Mr. Musk is getting involved in. I do not have any questions for you. Do my fellow commissioners? Seeing none, it does not look like we'll need the company present. I will move that we find the designation of the company as an eligible telecommunications carrier is in the public interest and designate the company as an eligible telecommunications carrier pursuant to Title 47 of the United States Code, Section 214E, for the service territory specified in its application effective March 31st, 2021, provided that no adverse comments are filed within 30 days and that the company complies with the Commission's requirements described in the May 4th, 2012 notice to ETCs. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
On behalf of my grandchildren and all future generations of posterity, aye.
Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. We may have lost our secretary. Mr. Secretary, are you still with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, we could hear you. We can't see you. There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. Item number 4 on today's agenda is a request from the Potomac Edison Company for a CPCN waiver for transmission line removal. On this item for staff, we have Samarit Duray, Michael Dean, and for the company, Jeffrey Trout and Travis Turner.
Good morning, Ms. Duray.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Samrawit Derari on behalf of Commission staff. On February 17, 2021, Potomac Edison filed with the Commission a request for a waiver from the requirements to obtain a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, or CPCN, to the extent one is necessary to allow the company to remove approximately 840 feet of a portion of the de-energized 138 kV transmission line in Maryland that runs from the decommissioned R. Paul Smith Power Plant in Maryland to the Marlow substation in West Virginia. PUA Section 7-207, parent A, parent 3, parent I, defines construction as any physical change to a site and lists demolition as one such physical change. Based on the impacts of the project to the project site and the work involved in the proposed project, staff concludes that the proposed removal activity satisfies the PUS definition of construction, and therefore the project is subject to the Maryland PUA CPCN provisions. Concludes that although subject to the PUA CPCN provisions, the proposed project satisfies the requirement for a mandatory waiver. Therefore, staff recommends that the Commission grant the company a mandatory CPCN waiver from the requirements of the PUA Section 7-207, parent B, parent 4, parent I, for the work described in the company's filing. Staff also notes that there is no prior CPCN associated with the line proposed to be removed, and therefore recommends that the granting of the CPCN waiver be conditioned upon 1, all conditions, if any, proposed by other state agencies and approved by the Commission, and 2, PE filing of a notification with the Commission when the removal of the line is complete. Staff would like to indicate that PPRP did not file comments, but notified staff that they do not oppose the granting of the waiver request. Thank you, and Mr. Dean and I are on questions.
Thank you. We'll turn to counsel for the Potomac Edison Company.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Jeffrey Trout on behalf of the Potomac Edison Company. I also have with me Mr. Travis Turner in case the Commission has any technical questions. We agree with the substance of the staff's recommendation, and in particular, we were gratified to see staff's very detailed analysis of the issue, which perplexed us, which was whether removal of a line requires a CPCN or a CPCN waiver. We found staff's analysis of that issue very persuasive. The portion of staff's recommendation to the Commission that we have concerns about is the 2 requests that staff makes. One is that we comply with all state and local laws and requirements, and the request that we notify the Commission or staff when the removal is completed. We don't have any problem with the substance of those requests. Our concern is about characterizing those as conditions to the waiver. And the reason is that we're concerned is twofold. One is a legal concern and the other is a policy concern. And I can amplify on those 2 concerns if the Commission would like.
Mr. Trout, what if I break the motion into 2 parts, in which we grant the waiver for good cause, and then make a requirement that the utility shall provide the notification and compliance with laws?
If the Commission believes that that would solve the 2 concerns, then I would not have a problem with doing it that way. Let me just explain my 2 concerns. in a little more
Well-
detail.
Hey, Mr.
Okay,
Trout,
sorry.
you want to sever the waiver from these two quote unquote conditions, correct?
That is what we seek to do. It's characterizing them as conditions is our problem. We don't believe that the General Assembly, when they use the word shall with respect to a B4 waiver, as opposed to the word may with respect to a B3 waiver, intended that for a B4 mandatory waiver, that there be any other requirements than what are in the statute. And the other facet of this, the policy facet of it is, if you start conditioning mandatory waivers, these quote conditions unquote are innocuous. We're going to comply with the law and the requirements, whether you ask us to or not. But if you want to ask us to, that's fine. And likewise, if you wanted us to notify you when the work is done, you don't have to make that a condition of the waiver. We would happily do that anyway. But once you start formally conditioning mandatory waivers, you're in effect adding new requirements beyond those that are in the statute. I don't think that's what is intended by the law, and I am very concerned that that's a slippery slope. I remember last week's admin and the discussion the commission had last week about the scope of the waiver process. If you can condition a mandatory waiver for one thing, you can condition it for anything else that could be imagined. And I'm sure that that would be a good policy for the commission to start down. So I'm trying to stop us at the very tippy top of the slippery slope.
Thank you, Mr. Trout. I heard your concern 5 minutes ago.
I apologize. Sorry.
Do commissioners have questions of staff or the company?
Mr. Chairman, I just one question for staff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we know if we know that PPRP didn't provide any additional concerns or conditions? Were there any other agencies that offered any conditions separate from PPRP?
This is Mike Dean. We contacted PPRP, and by law, PPRP is the agency that collects all the state agency questions. And PPRP specifically stated that they had no conditions that they wished to impose upon the waiver request.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Dean. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the follow-up question to Commissioner Linton's question? So Maryland Department of the Environment didn't have any. I mean, I guess my mind's eye is imagining there's going to be structures removed and deconstructing this line. Is that right, Mr. Trout? We taking towers down?
Travis, can you speak to that?
Yes. Actually, on the Maryland side of this project, there will be no structures removed just simply because they do not exist on the Maryland side. There will be 2 removed on the West Virginia side.
Fair enough. Because my follow-up question was going to be about Maryland Department of the Environment and containing sedimentation for any deconstruction activities, but it appears to be a moot point since there will be none on the Maryland side of the line. So I'm satisfied. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. At this point, I move that we grant the company's request for a CPCN waiver under the Public Utilities Article Section 7-207B4I to permit the company to remove the 138 kilovolt transmission lines from the R. Paul Smith power plant to the Maryland-West Virginia border as described in the company's filing. Separately, the company shall file a notification with the commission upon completion of the removal work. The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye and aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Linton.
Aye, aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye, Captain.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye and aye to both motions. The motions are approved. Mr. Trout, as always, I appreciate your zealous representation of your client.
Thank you, and thank you.
Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, item number 5 is a request from Delmarva Power and Light Company for a waiver of the CPCN requirement for a project to interconnect a new substation and an existing 138 kV overhead transmission line. On this item for staff, we have Roger Austin and James Greger, and for the company, Matthew Seegers and Ray Ruwaltz.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Austin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. Roger Austin on behalf of staff. In case number 9496, the Commission issued order number 89326 on October 29th, 2019, granting Bluegrass Solar LLC a certificate of public convenience and necessity to construct an 80 megawatt solar photovoltaic generating facility. This generating facility will include a new substation that PJM determined needed to be constructed in order to accommodate the new generation on that part of the grid. To feed the new generation into the grid, Delmarva Power's Church to Carville 138 kV transmission line near the new substation will have to be modified to loop it in and out of the substation. To accomplish this, Delmarva Power must remove one existing steel pole in the Church to Carville transmission right-of-way and replace it with 2 new steel poles. On February 18, 2021, Delmarva Power filed a written request with the Commission asking for a waiver for of the requirement to obtain a certificate of public convenience and necessity as set forth in Section 7-207B4 Roman numeral 1 of the Public Utilities Article in connection with the specific work to connect this new substation to the Church to Carville transmission line. Staff has analyzed the work that will be performed and is satisfied that it meets all the requirements for obtaining a waiver as set forth in Section 7-207B4 Roman numeral 1 of the Public Utilities Article. Staff also notes that Delmarva Power's ratepayers will not be responsible for any of the project's costs, that Delmarva does not anticipate any interruption of electrical or other public utility service to any customers as a result of any of the planned work specified within this filing, and that this project will serve to support the state's renewable energy solar policy by making 80 megawatts of solar power available to the electrical grid. Staff recommends that the Commission waive the requirement to obtain a CPCN for this project pursuant to Public Utilities Article Section 7-207B4 Roman numeral 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. We'll turn to the representative for Delmarva Power and Light.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Matthew Seegers appearing for Delmarva Power. Also appearing with me is Mr. Ray Ruwaltz, Manager of Engineering for PHI. We have nothing to add to staff's recommendation, but we are available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions on the company's request?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Seegers, it was in the buck sheet. I remember reading it, but remind me when the company anticipates this work to be completed.
I believe that was one of the data responses. Yes, our first data response. When does the company plan to begin and complete this project? January through May of 2022, sir.
Thank you. I generally remembered that. And do you know when the construction of the Bluegrass Solar Project will be ready to come online? I know it's not your responsibility, but I just wondered if you knew.
That I'll have to defer to Mr. Rewalt. Mr. Rewalt, do you know that information?
Yeah, I think that it should be around the same time frame. Basically our cut-in structures should align pretty much with the same with the build of that new Pond Town substation. So I'm thinking I don't have a specific date on it, but I'm pretty sure it's close to that May 2022 date.
Thank you. That's close enough for me. I just, as we strive to meet our statutory requirements for state policy with regard to renewable energy, that's an important piece of information for me. And I appreciate knowing that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
No additional questions. I'm prepared to move that we grant the company its requested waiver of the requirements of the CPCN for the project pursuant to the Public Utilities Article, Section 7-207B4(1). The vote begins with Commissioner Herman.
Aye.
Commissioner Linton.
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Richard.
Aye.
I vote aye. The motion is approved. With no additional business on today's meeting, this meeting is now adjourned. Have a good day.
Thank you.